Well, good morning and welcome to Morning Gospel Fuel with Mr. G. It is Sunday, January 23rd, 123, the third Sunday of Ordinary Time, and it is the feast day of Saint Marianne Cope. She's a more modern saint. She was born in 1838 and she died in 1918. Um, she was a German-born American religious sister who was a member of the Sisters of St. Francis of Syracuse in New York, and she was a founding leader of its St. Joseph's Hospital in the city, as well as the first 50 general hospitals in the country. So she had a huge part to play in the development of our modern day hospitals. She is the 11th person in what is now the U.S. to be canonized by the Catholic Church. And she is the patron saint of lepers, those who are outcast, those with HIV and AIDS, and also the state of Hawaii, one of the patron saints of Hawaii. Today's gospel kind of jumps around a little bit, but it's from Luke chapter 1, verses 1 through 4, and then it goes to chapter 4, verses 14 through 21. Let's begin in the name of the Father, Son, and Spirit, amen. Since many have undertaken to compile a narrative of the events that have been fulfilled among us, just as those who were eyewitnesses from the beginning and ministers of the word have handed them down to us, I too have decided, after investigating everything accurately anew, to write it down in an orderly sequence for you, most excellent Theophilus, so that you may realize the certainty of the teachings you have received. Oh, I just lost my place for chapter 4. Jesus returned to Galilee in the power of the Spirit, and news of him spread throughout the whole region. He taught in their synagogue and was praised by all. He came to Nazareth, where he had grown up, and went according to his custom into the synagogue on the Sabbath day. He stood up to read and was handed a scroll of the prophet Isaiah. He unrolled the scroll and found the passage where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring glad tidings to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, and to proclaim a year acceptable to the Lord." Rolling up the scroll, he handed it back to the attendant and sat down, and the eyes of all in the synagogue looked intently at him. He said to them, "Today this scripture passage is fulfilled in your hearing." All right, so the first one, Luke 1, chapter verses 1 through 4, is literally the prologue. It's Luke introducing what he's going to talk about. And it's interesting that he's addressing it in an orderly sequence to Theophilus, which literally translates to friend of God. And I assume he is a Greek leader. It doesn't really say that. I should have looked that up. But either way, it does say that Luke is a third. Let's just read it. It says, "The Gospel, according to Luke, is the only one of the synoptic Gospels to begin with a literary prologue, making use of a formal literary construction and vocabulary. The author writes the prologue in imitation of Hellenistic Greek writers, and, in so doing, relates his story about Jesus to contemporaneous Greek and Roman literature. Luke is not only interested in the words and deeds of Jesus, but also in the larger context of the birth, ministry, death, and resurrection of Jesus as the fulfillment of the promises of God in the Old Testament. As a second or third generation Christian, Luke acknowledges his debt to earlier eyewitnesses and ministers of the Word, but claims that his contribution to this developing tradition is a complete and accurate account, told in an orderly manner and intended to provide Theophilus, friend of God, the literal translation, and other readers with certainty about earlier teachings they have received." So it's interesting that Luke was a second or third generation disciple or Christian, meaning he was not around during the time of Jesus, which just shows the development of Scripture throughout time. So second or third century, that's that's the 3 and 400s. So that wasn't too far off whenever St. Jerome translated the Bible for us so that we, all Christians, can read it together, because the Old Testament was written in Hebrew, and the New Testament was written in Greek. So St. Jerome had to unify it, and that language was in Latin, which is the original language of the church. So I think that's interesting. Then it moves on to chapter 4, the beginning of the Galilean ministry, of how Jesus came to fulfill the scriptures, and it is being fulfilled right now as he's beginning his ministry. So all that's taken place over the course of human history, from the Old Testament into now, is coming to the light through Jesus. It's all being fulfilled, and Jesus is coming to let everybody know, which I think is quite interesting, because it's like he hands the scroll back to them. It's like, okay, this is yours. Now I'm going to take it from here. So what is it that we need in our lives, that we need to give up? Just hand it to the Lord and let him take it from here. And whether that means a change or not, who's to know? But we got to trust the Lord a little bit more. So have a great day. God bless. And keep it real. In the Father, Son, and Spirit. Amen.